Hi and welcome. Happy Thursday. So excited to be here with you today to talk about another topic related to business school. Today's topic is going to be focused on deferred applicants. I know we have still quite a few people in our community who are preparing for round 2 deadlines, which are in January. And if you are watching, definitely feel free to ask any questions you may have in the comments to help with that component. But our main focus essentially in today's 30-minute session is going to be the deferred MBA candidates. Before we dive into those elements, I just wanted to give a bit of logistics, just spend a moment talking about logistics. I will be monitoring, so I have another screen on this side where I monitor the comments and the questions. And if you have questions that you want to ask for me to address them directly on this live, please feel free to write them in the chat wherever you're joining us from. So whether that is LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I'll be able to address them directly. I have put together, as usual, a few slides, and I would love it if you guys can essentially interact. So let me know, what your thoughts are. Let me know what additional information you can find helpful. If you are someone who is considering a deferred MBA and want to talk about how a coach can support you, definitely we can discuss that further. And you'll see a link on the screen, or in the comment section of wherever you're joining us from, where you can request a call. So before we dive deeper, I'm just going to give you a little bit give you insights about C Admissions. So we are a boutique admission coaching firm focused on tailored coaching for individuals that are high achievers looking to gain admission to top tier business schools. We focus on the individual. That's our focus. And we have been in business since 2017, focused on supporting applicants through the entire journey from beginning to end. So beginning to exploring and reflecting on their experiences, and all the way to the end to negotiating scholarship and finalizing the final school that they're going to be working or accepting an offer from. We do have a comprehensive support. Everyone has different needs. We do not believe that one size fits all, but we do have a process that has been proven to be successful. And for those who are really committed to going on this journey and wanting the full support, this is truly a comprehensive support service that I'm really proud of in terms of the amount of guidance applicants get through the entire journey. So who am I? I am the founder, and I'm an alumnus of NYU and Yale, and I've been a coach for about 8 years now, supporting applicants. We founded SIA with that perspective in mind of making sure that one size does not fit all, and that you get the one-on-one guidance to make sure that you are not feeling inundated by all the commentary that you find online, and that you're making the right decisions in terms of what you are presenting in front of the admission team. So today we're going to focus on the deferred MBA. As I mentioned, this is another element of business schools that started with Harvard, and then many more schools have been adding this feature to their MBA process or MBA offerings. And I'll talk through essentially what are the deferred MBAs, who is it for, what's the application process on a macro level, because it's not enough. 30 minutes is not enough time to go through those, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on that front. And we'll talk about some strategic next steps in terms of what you should be doing if you are considering a deferred MBA, especially if you're applying this coming year. We have Q&A at the end, but again, if you have questions, write them whenever you have the questions in the chat feature of the platform you're joining us from, and I'll be happy to answer them along the way. All right, so let's dive right in. So what is a deferred MBA program? So a deferred MBA program essentially means that you get to secure a seat at a MBA program. So you get an MBA just like applicants who have 5 years experience. However, you are securing your seat between 2 to 5 years in the future. So this means that this is specifically designated for college seniors in their final year of study or master students in their final year of study who don't have full-time work experience and are really looking to make sure that they have a seat secured for the future and obviously gain experience in between the 2 to 5 years where the seat is being held for you. This is for the deferred program is essentially for those who are looking to plan early for their long-term success. And some of the schools that offer the deferred MBA option, so it's not all schools offer this, but some of those are Harvard, Wharton, MIT Sloan, Stanford, Columbia, Berkeley Haas, Yale SOM. Although Yale SOM's deferred program is slightly different, it's called the Silver Scholars Program. And it's not necessarily the exact structure as most of the other schools have it. For Yale, for example, you start immediately after you graduate from your studies, and you are then going into, for 1 year, you study at the business school, you get a 1 year sort of job offer, and then you come back to complete your Silver Scholars program. The others are essentially you are going to be completing your degree, work for 2 to 5 years, and then join the class of the year that you choose to actually attend. So you have the optionality to choose if you want to start your MBA 2 years post-graduation, or you want to wait until you get that 5 years of work experience, or anything in between that period of time. But there is a limit to how long this seat is being held for you. And obviously slight nuances are based on the school's guidelines. So I would leave that on there. There are some schools that do have deferred option for their undergraduate students. So like NYU has one of those. So those are not included in here, but those are optionalities if you are attending some of those schools that offer that element as well. Okay. So who is the deferred MBA program for? Let's talk a little bit, let's sort of back up a bit in terms of how did the deferred MBA all start? It actually started because schools were seeing applicants not choose to do an MBA because they didn't feel like they had the right requisite skills. So business schools have created the deferred MBA program to essentially entice applicants to apply for these programs, specifically for those who have non-traditional backgrounds, and make sure that they are still considering business school later down the line. So they're not shying away from going the business school path because of their background, right? So the traditional routes is, so those individuals who are looking to go the traditional route, the deferred MBA is not for you. The deferred MBA is for individuals who may opt out of applying to business school because of their background. And we see this so often here, like engineers don't have engineering background, scientists, or even individuals who come from like healthcare backgrounds that are more technical. Private equity is one of those that people are not necessarily inclined to leave a private equity role to start an MBA, but this is something that actually business schools want more of applicants. Artists. So think about non-traditional business fields. That is what the deferred MBA program is. The caveat is private equity, of course. The schools are really looking to make sure that applicants that are, you're still sort of like in the element of completing your studies. You're comfortable taking that GMAT or GRE test now, and obviously have this secured so you are allowed to explore, or you can explore. Not that anyone needs to give you permission to explore, of course. So why should you consider a deferred MBA? If you see yourself as someone who is going to hold a leadership position in the future, and if you have someone who you admire, sort of like holding the position that you in the future see yourself holding, look at what their career looked like. What are the steps that they had to take? And recognize that this is something that you're going to need to do as well. So the deferred MBA does offer you the opportunity for early planning. It also gives you the career flexibility. So what do I mean by that? I see this often where applicants are like, well, I'm going to get a consulting job because if I don't get this consulting job, then I'm not going to be very viable candidate for MBAs, for MBA programs that I want to apply to later down the line. Securing a seat now would allow you to actually have that flexibility. So if you want to do consulting, you can, although they actually want you to explore areas where you wouldn't be necessarily inclined to say yes to in that 2 to 5 year period. So you have that opportunity to be flexible. Like I've seen candidates who wanted to, work in nonprofits during that 2 to 5 years, wanted to work in sort of like early stage startup experiences, wanted to go and travel and work in other countries. And that those opportunities, they would have had to say no to those opportunities if they didn't secure a deferred MBA in advance. And of course, as a deferred candidate, you also have access to the top tier network of the school that you will be attending. So I think it does definitely pay to do this early on. You are securing that seat at the top MBA program while exploring your passions, of course, but also you have a chance that you have this secured. Obviously, you can change your mind down the line, but you do have this sort of security blanket between now and 5 years from now, or whenever you choose to apply. In terms of the application process, so for most of the schools on the list, they do have a application deadline around the first week of April. Every school is slightly different, so definitely check the schools that you are planning to apply to. There are some schools, like I said, Yale SOM Silver Scholars Program actually follows the deadlines of the traditional MBA candidates. So you have round 1, round 2, and round 3, and they follow the same deadlines as does Stanford. And then the other ones are like they have a specific designated pool that you are considered with that are deferred MBA candidates only. Some schools also have 2 rounds, so like Darden, for example, so you can check those details as well. In terms of what is required for this application, it's very much the same, honestly, like the MBA candidates. So you have essays that are required to be included, letters of recommendation, short answer questions, your goals, and test scores. The component, and we'll talk more next week because I will be holding another session on deferred MBA candidates next week on the 12th. And we'll talk more about the goals component, but the goals, this is again for non-traditional people who are looking to take risks. So you will need definitely to work through your goals that are obviously an important component. Now, a bonus tip is that about 98% of applicants who are admitted to deferred MBA programs have a job lined up by the time they apply. So if you haven't lined up a job yet, this is something that you want to really work extra hard on. I know now we're in December, so nothing's happening in the moment, but you have until April to really secure that job. And it's really important because, again, it shows to the business school that by April you should have a job for your graduation that happens in May, right? And then, of course, another pro tip is that in your application process, it's really important to tell your story. And I'll say a little bit more in the next slide about this, but telling your story doesn't mean that you are just sharing everything about you, because you don't have the space to do that. But tell your story in terms of being authentic, but also, of course, taking into account what business schools are looking for, right? In terms of crafting that application, you need to showcase transferable skills. So for example, if you're an engineer, what are the skills that you have been able to acquire over the amount of time that you have been an engineer or studying engineering? What internships have you had? What leadership opportunities have you been involved in? And what opportunities have you taken to have impact in the communities you're a part of? And when I say communities, I really mean that in the most broadest sense, as in, your peer group is a community, your class is a community, your school is a community, your clubs is a community, right? Your internship, you're a part of a community. So which in whichever sort of area, domain that you have been able to demonstrate impact, you want to make sure that you are integrating that into your application. You're also going to want to highlight leadership skills. And I know that, when you don't have work experience, this can be a bit tricky, but you do want to look at how have you demonstrated leadership even in a project itself. So how have you owned the piece that you have been working on and contributing to the collective? And like I mentioned earlier, authenticity is the only way that I have seen, and I've been doing this for a while, and I see many applicants go through the deferred application every single year. And the authenticity is really what makes a strong application, an applicant stand out. Don't try to fit the mold, because that's not what they're looking for. They want the authentic you, and obviously make sure that you are communicating the transferable skills in terms of business. But I know that sometimes it's much more difficult. And in those cases, you want to make sure that you give yourself time, right? Because time is your best friend in this process, right? So in terms of what you should be doing now for April, right, for the deadlines, if you haven't done anything yet, you're going to want to start looking for schools or researching schools. Now, you're not going to apply to 13 schools, right? Because obviously not all of those make sense for you. So you're going to first and foremost understand what kind of community you thrive in. What is the community that really makes you excited? And then also, what kind of community do you need that has the right resources for you? So for example, if you are interested in working in the energy space, you're going to want to look for communities that have those opportunities. If you're looking for eventually being sort of in a investment finance role with a specific exposure, you're going to want to look at where is the cluster of those individuals, right? So researching the schools actually does take time. Everything is going to look the same online. So after a while, but the schools are actually quite different from one another. And the only way that you're able to do that is by taking the time to do the research, do the legwork. At this point, you also need to be planning your timeline, right? If you haven't sat for the GMAT or the GRE, you must get started on that. And especially you can get started on that now, because you typically need about 3 months of study. And given that you are in your final year of study, it's actually a bit, typically it's a bit easier to get the score because you are in the mindset of test taking. So that is actually, to your benefit at this point to sit for the test. However, if you don't get the score that you need, because the schools are competitive, right? They are looking for high achievers, and you have to have competitive test score academic background, right? you have an opportunity. You want to give yourself the opportunity to take the test again, and it has to be done before you actually submit your application. You also want to start working on your essays, working on your story and your goals, right? In addition to, of course, connecting with your recommenders, identifying who they are, and connecting with them. Now, if you are looking to work with a coach through this process, I would say find a coach now, because they're going to guide you through every step, what you need to do, when you need to do it by, and making sure that you are making the right decisions along the way. I sometimes see this where before candidates sign up with me, they decide to have conversations with the recommenders that they want to ask for letters of recommendation, and it ends up being not the right person. So they kind of have to retract their request, which is not comfortable to do in a relationship-driven environment, right? So if you plan to work with someone, identify the person now so that they can guide you through all of those steps. And again, it's not really about perfection, and definitely not about last minute writing, right? It's about progress. When it comes to writing, it does need time. You do need time to actually, first and foremost, have an outline, have a structure that makes sense, but then how do you elevate that to the next level that makes you seem authentic? It captures everything you want to communicate. It captures what the business school is looking for as well. And that is the progress of development of a material. For non-business backgrounds, so sometimes I hear applicants sort of opt out of applying to business school because they feel that their non-business background won't make them a successful candidate, and that's furthest from the reality. That's what exactly business schools are looking for, because they want to put together a very diverse classroom. So when you think about is business for you, right? I don't want you to think about, do I have the business skills? Because the business skills can be actually learned in business school. If that's what you want to do, you can learn those. But you want to look at, do you have the leadership aptitude? Do you have the vision that you want to, do you have the vision of the future that you want to build, right? Those are things that can't be taught, right? You have to, that's my belief at least, you have to innately have those things, right? You need to have that inspiration to want to make an impact in the world. It's not something that someone can give that to you, right? So if you have that element, then business school is definitely for you. And it's a place where you can actually make tangible impact. And definitely consider Deferred MBA. And some examples are here, right? So like your problem solving, your creativity, your analytic thinking, and these are not mutually exclusive, of course. But I want you to really think about, do you have the innate leadership, and do you have the vision, and do you want to make a difference in the world, right? And if you do, then definitely consider business school. In terms of how to maximize your potential during this period of time, especially if you have a little bit of more time, more than a couple of months to prepare, what I suggest that you do is you start networking with your environments that you are in most comfortably. So that could be clubs, it could be alumni in your community that you're a part of, it could be cold calling, right? It could be attending conferences, so you can be a part of the conversation that is happening. Or you can also just have conversations with students at your target institution's business school. You want to gain professional experience through internships, right? So this is especially true for those who are not, again, applying for in the next couple of months, because obviously this takes a little bit of time, but you want to start planning those out as much as possible. And you want to obtain leadership role within the clubs you are involved in, right? Identify first and foremost what you're interested in. And of course, sometimes those are self-evident based on the career, based on your undergraduate studies, but you're not it's not you can actually you can actually get this go beyond your clubs that are associated. So if like your engineering club, for example, you don't need to be only involved in that club. You can expand your involvement beyond those particular clubs, and it can be it could be even beyond your school. So look for opportunities where you are actually excited to be a part of, and look for leadership roles, very important, that you can obviously bring into your application when you make your when you're ready to apply. You have a very short window in terms of your application, and this means that you can only apply to the deferred application only once. There's no reapplication to that. However, if you apply to a deferred MBA and you're unsuccessful, you have the opportunity to apply again once you have minimum of 2 years of work experience as a traditional MBA candidate, so not in the deferred program. So, but this is a great opportunity because it allows you to really just test the waters, if nothing else. And obviously everyone wants the success, but you have an opportunity to really secure your seat now, and obviously have a little bit of more breathing room as to when are you going to start your MBA journey. All right, so we have about 3 minutes. I will stop sharing screens so that I can answer questions. Let's see, any questions have come in? It doesn't look like it. Okay, let's go with the questions that have that came in through registration. Okay, so what strategies can I use to address my lack of business management experience in my application? Excellent. Excellent question. I want you to think about actually impact. Ways that you can do this is, for example, focus on projects that you have worked on in your internship and really dive deeper into those projects. Showcase what role did you play? How were you able to make an impact in the organization through the project that you were given? And don't shortchange yourself in terms of the experience that you have. You're not going to be the managing partner of an organization while you're in college. So we need to be realistic, right? But you can still contribute to the organization's success, and that's really what it's important. You can do the same thing for the clubs that you are involved in, but especially in your clubs, you should have leadership positions so that you can demonstrate the kind of strategic foresight, actionable steps that you've taken, the ability to influence others by having people excited about the thing that you want them to be excited about, right? So there's definitely ways that you can communicate your business and management acumen based on the experiences that you've had. And again, you don't need to have, you can focus on the experiences that you have had, and don't start sort of comparing yourself to someone who has years of work experience that you don't yet, right? So be gentle with yourself in that process. All right, we're going to do last question. So what type of extracurricular or leadership experience strengthen a deferred MBA applicant? There's no particular type. One of the things that when I work with candidates for deferred applicants, especially those that I work with, a couple of years in advance, ultimately, I want them to focus on the thing that they care about. So if you care about sustainability, if you care about finance, if you care about technology, if you care about music, if you care about whatever it is that you care about, focus on having exposure to that, because what that will do is, first and foremost, you already have the passion for it. You have the vision for it. You care about that element. And then your impact is going to be that much more easy for you to have because it's something you care about. If someone is telling you to do something you don't care about, you're not going to put your best effort into it, right? So focus on understanding yourself, what matters to you, and then looking for opportunities where you can make those contributions. And so, if you're to take one thing out of this, it starts inside. It starts internally, in terms of what do you want, what do you care about, what makes you, get up every morning excited. So, and you may say, Susan, I'm not excited every morning, and I get it. But essentially, when you have something on your agenda that you are super excited about, what is it, right? Especially if it involves something beyond yourself, right? And focus on those, and if you need support with this process of deciding and kind of helping you navigate the planning itself, definitely feel free to reach out. That is something that we do, and we will have quite a bit of questions for you to help you navigate that reflection process. All right, so hopefully this was a informative session for you. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. We will be having a discussion on is a deferred MBA worth it? So again, if you are looking for deferred MBAs, or if you know someone who is interested or may consider a deferred MBA, definitely invite them to that event. There is a link on the screen as well as in the descriptions. But you can always go to cadmissions.com, and there's a top banner that said upcoming events, and you can see those there as well. Next Saturday on the 14th, I will be also joining GMAT Club, where I'll talk about negotiating scholarships, and there's a link to register for that event as well in the upcoming events that we have. So I'm super excited to have the next week's discussion as well. So please register, write your questions, because I'll integrate those into my presentation. And I'm looking forward to seeing you then. Have a good rest of your week.